From scratch to 5 million, the simple systems behind Matt Dietz Agency.
Welcome to the Modern Insurance Agent Podcast.
We're your hosts, David and Al Denning.
What happens when a millennial couple dives headfirst into the insurance world, scales $1 million remote business, and decides to share the journey with the world?
You get the Modern Insurance Agent.
Here, we reveal the messy, magical, and sometimes hilarious realities of building a business and a life you love.
From traveling the globe to building remote teams. Yes, even working remotely on top of a mountain in the Philippines. We're sharing insights, strategies, and plenty of laughs to help agents and entrepreneurs succeed.
Because, let's face it, success isn't just about hitting numbers.
It's about designing a life that works for you.
So let's dive in and build something extraordinary together.
Welcome back to the Modern Insurance Agent Podcast. Today, we're talking about building a durable P&C book with a tiny team without losing your mind. So before we dive in, though, you can get all the show notes, all the goodies, as well as how to connect with our awesome guest. If you go to jumpstartgonow.com/podcast, we already put it all together for you. So my guest today is Matt Dietz, 21 years, a while, with farmers, has built 4,000 policy, $5 million book with one CSR and one producer. Anybody who's a P&C knows how impressive that is. And he's a 17 times Topper Club agent. And for those not from the farmers ecosphere, I'll have you drop what that is in just a little bit. And he's founded Agency Launch, and he's been podcasting since 2014 with 800 plus episodes. That's a lot of podcasts. And if you want practical systems for communication, content, and accountability, this is your playbook. So let's dive on in. Welcome to the show, Matt.
What's up, David? I'm stoked to be talking with you today. I think it's due time. I know that we were supposed to meet at some time, so I'm glad that we are. I'm a fan of what you guys do, so I'm excited to chat with you today. You guys do really good stuff, and you're doing good stuff for agents too. And I want to align myself with people who are trying to help agents because they need it, right?
They do. And I really appreciate that. And I remember when we first got into the insurance, which was not 21 years ago, I think it was maybe 8 to 10-ish or so. And I remember looking at a lot of podcasts and other stuff as I wanted to pick up, as much quick knowledge about this industry, because we had marketing consulting for a lot of businesses, including insurance, but we hadn't lived and breathed this industry at that point. And I remember running across your podcast, was a few others, and it was a great way to pick up all these crazy acronyms and jargon and all these things of like, what's that, what's this, and it's a great way to learn. And then I know yours very much focused on helping people scale their businesses as well. So I know we'll talk about a lot of topics here, but I know I mentioned this in the intro, so I'd love for you to explain it a little bit. Most people kind of know premium and book size, but can you explain a little bit what Toppers Club is? And then also, I'm pretty sure you've been on President's Council as well, and what those are kind of even within the farmers ecosphere.
Yeah, so it's pretty simple. The simplest way is Toppers Club is based on new business production for agencies. And, our company has a certain number of benchmarks to hit. You can hit it a number of ways. You can hit it by doing a certain amount of personal lines with a certain amount of commercial with a certain amount of life. And if you hit those three benchmarks, you get Toppers. Or if you are, a killer in any one of those, like if you're a commercial agency and you do a lot of commercial, or you do a lot of life, or you do a lot of personal lines, you can qualify that way too. That's the long way. The short way to say it is it's about the top 10% of the agency force qualifies for Toppers. So yeah, it's something that we want to hit every year. If we don't hit Toppers at this point, it's kind of a bummer. Like it's a bad year. So it's our minimum expectation. It has been for a while now. So, and I feel like if you build the right systems, you don't even have to pay attention to those trackers. You just qualify, and all of a sudden you look down and it's September and you're like, hey, we made it to Toppers again, and you don't even have to pay attention. So that's what I try and help agents do, is like, just if you do the work, the numbers will show up.
The major difference between a once or twice Toppers happened on a good year versus we're consistently hitting Toppers 17 plus times. So I love that. I love what I was talking about, because a lot of people, especially P&C world, okay, to to hit toppers, to grow a big PNC, I got to have a ton of producers. I got to have a bunch of CSRs, and I got to do all these things. So I love how you are going to talk about and kind of show, hey, that's not the requirement. In fact, systems and processes are even more important. So you've built this agency. What were some of the non-negotiables that got you from scratch to 5 million with that 2-person staff?
Oh, that's a good question. I would say off the top of my head immediately, like everybody that works for me has to produce, whether you're a CSR or obviously a producer. But when I first started, probably for my first 10 years, I hired hybrid employees, people that would service and sell. And there was a minimum expectation for sales. Back in the day, we tracked policies more than premium. So, anyone that worked for me in my agency had to write 20 policies a month or they couldn't work for me. Like that was part of the job expectation. And that's something that's laid out in the interview. So there's no surprises when they start. And I've had employees, once I learned that I've had employees that can do that, like you never go backwards. It's an interesting trajectory that I've learned is when we first employ people, we don't know how much we can get out of them because we're brand new and we don't even know what we're doing when we start, right? But as your business grows and as you grow as a business owner and as you learn more and more and more, the quality of your staff will get better because you get better, right? And so you can bring people on, train them more efficiently. You can identify the people who aren't going to make it. We've all kept employees for too long. I had an employee for like a year longer than I probably should have now. And that costs money. And that limits the amount of business that you can write. So building the right team is crucial. So one of the non-negotiables was everyone that works for me has got to put policies on the books. And I would tell them, that's how I can afford to pay you, right? We're commission only, right? So like that's how we make money. We are the epitome of a small business. Like we don't have backing. I don't have a war chest of money sitting around. I was broke when I started my business, and we had to produce in order to get paid. And so that's probably one of the most important things that I did early on, was to make sure everyone that I pay to work here is producing.
Was all aligned. And I do want to ask some questions about that because I'm very interested in the structure and setup around that a little bit. As yes, everybody cohesively working together with those goals, and then yes, in your structure that everybody's working with the production side, which directly translates commissions and sales and the growth of the agency. How did you determine that versus some slightly alternative options where CSR's whole goal is like just taking everything off the plates of the producer so they can produce more versus CSR also being involved in sales? And there's a lot of different versions, but you've obviously found a lot of success in this. And I like the idea, of course, on everybody on my team putting production numbers up. So how'd you find that balance?
It was I didn't have any clients in the beginning. So I didn't have any service, right? And so I didn't hire anyone for 2 years. Let's lay that out first. Like I had to keep my expenses really low because I couldn't afford anybody. So I didn't hire anyone for 2 years. When I did hire someone, I don't remember how many policies I had. 700-800 policies maybe, or something like that. But it wasn't enough service work for a full-time person. So I can't have somebody sitting there answering 7 or 8 phone calls a day and paying them for 40 hours worth of work. So I'm like, they have to produce for me to warrant them working for me, right? And so I got lucky. Staffing is one of the hardest parts of our job. It's the hardest part of the job. I just had an employee quit an hour ago and I'm furious. So like it is so hard to find good people and to keep them. The first person that I hired was a killer. Like she loved sales. And what I've learned over time is that's unique. Not everybody has that sales gene or that drive. I think you either have it or you don't. Anyway, she came out of the gate. She loved selling. She was competitive. She liked contributing to the growth of a small business. And like, so we watched numbers together and we grew, and, I got lucky right out of the gate. And so that's when I learned that I could have an employee that could do both. And once you learn there are people out there that can do these things, you'll never accept less. And so that's been really helpful for my growth too. So when she quit and I brought someone else on, they had to perform at that level or better, because I know that there are people out there that can do this. So we want to continually step up the performance of our teams. And that's the way I see it.
I love that. And what I'd ask about that is talent, very difficult to find, across the country. Number one things is finding talent and keeping talent, and especially in a world there's been a lot of changes and shifts, since COVID and from there, where before that there was a talk a little bit remote, in person, and then it came like all this stuff went down during COVID, and there's still this very much in person, remote mix, maybe some positions, maybe not others. What's your take on in office versus remote? Is that something only one way or the other seek out as far as talent? What does that play any factors in for you?
For me, I want my people in house. I'm kind of an office rat, especially for the work that I'm asking them to do, especially for sales. Like, I want to train my people by hand, and that's really hard to do. It's really hard to do remotely. It's harder to hold them accountable. There are ways to do it. We can have systems and trackers and programs and all this stuff to track their calls and their numbers and stuff like that. But I want to listen to their phone calls. I want to meet with them in person. I want to be able to have real human interactions with people. And I think from a training standpoint, it's significantly better than having someone remotely, unless you hire someone remotely who has done it before and been successful and is plug and play, which is rare, right? So now, to be clear, my CSR is remote now, because 3 years ago, I was giving her a review and I was loving her up, and I was like, you get a raise and you're amazing and thank you so much. And she's like, Matt, I'm moving to North Carolina. And I was like, I panicked. She's the foundation of so much of what happens there. She's incredible. And so I was like, do you want to try working remotely? This was post-COVID, so things had changed, right? And she said, well, I was hoping you would say that. And so I sent her to North Carolina with her phone and her computer, and she works remotely. Nobody even knows she's gone, David. I mean, that's the world we live in right now, right? So she still answers the phone. She still answers emails. I have people come into my office and they're like, where's Meg? I'm like, she lives in North Carolina. And they have no idea. I'm like, when did she leave? Like 2.5 years ago. So it's a different world. Would I have done that with Meg when she started? No, I needed her in house to we have a shorthand with each other now and work beautifully together. And I trust her, and that took years, and that's why I needed to keep her. So I would prefer in-house people all day long. That's just me. Now, will it be like that in 5 or 10 years? I don't know, but that's where I am right now.
I really appreciate that breakdown, because I feel like people view it's either one way or the other, versus like, hey, this can make sense, but I think a lot of people make that mistake of, oh, let's do remote, but it's someone new, someone with not a lot of experience, someone I haven't built up rapport or trust with, or discipline, and it's like it can go very poorly, right? Like, and I know this because our whole team is remote and what that looks like, and you got to have just crazy different processes in place for that. But you're right, you get so much more hands-on control in person that you can do there, that it makes sense if possible to have them in person as well. So I love that. And we know some similar people in the industry, like Cody Askins is one that we probably both know. And Cody is the opposite of our whole team's distributed. Cody's like, if they're not in the office, we don't do any remote, basically. And it's very interesting seeing the pros and cons of both. I definitely see things like, man, that would be nice. And then I also am like, okay, well, it gives me an excuse to go visit my team members where they live. And so, there's pros and cons to both, but I love when you're running such a machine like yours, it probably does make sense to have so many just right there that it's easy to pop in and help.
Yeah. And I'm not saying mine is right. I mean, that's what I choose for me. Things continue to evolve. If we know about anything in our industry, is that change is constant, and so we have to try and stay evolutionary and continue to roll with trends that are important, trends that are working. We also have to be wary of trends that are marketing, and don't really move the needle, right? And so there's a lot of stuff that's thrown at us, and we have to be wary of things. But I like to tinker in my agency too, so I'll try things. And so anyway, there's no right or wrong way. That's the best part about being a business owner, is like you find what works for you and you do it. And that's one of my favorite parts of being an agency owner, is that I love to try new things and try to do things differently and break away from the pack. And that's just kind of in my DNA. That's why I started podcasting 10 years ago, because nobody was doing that at the time. So that's the fun part of the job. That's what I love most about it.
And I definitely want to hop in the podcast portion of this in just a second, but I do want to ask, just from this machine that you have right now, this agency, 4,000 plus policy book, what kind of daily, weekly rhythms keep a 4,000 plus policy book sane? And then also maybe along with that, is there any like processes or things that you cut, change that kind of instantly either save time, reduce errors, or helped as well?
Yeah, good question. So communication is the easy answer to that, right? You've got to be dialed in with your team about, as much as is necessary, So Meg and I talk, multiple times a day for probably 20 to 30 minutes at a time. And so we're really dialed in. She is just incredibly organized, and she manages my entire book from a service standpoint. It's unbelievable. People ask, how does she do it? The woman before her was the same way. So that's the interesting point. Remember how I talked earlier, like you'll never accept less. The woman before Meg was just almost as high level as Meg. So once you have somebody like that, again, you'll never take anyone less. So the people that work for you should continue to get better and better and better until you get like your team. Like that's what you're looking for. And that's what I had for like 7 years. I had my team for like 7 years. We were hardworking. We showed up every day. We communicated incredibly well. I have a small office, man. I got 600 square feet. The three of us are in each other's business all day long. And I like being a part of the day to day. So like if my door's open, I can hear what's going on. I know what claims are being filed. I know who's having a billing problem. I know what policies are being written. I just like being a part of the whole machine, So communication is paramount when it comes to this. I can't assume that everything is running smoothly and have it be that way. There are problems that need to be solved every single day, and we discuss them. You know what I mean? So Meg's organizational style is very old school. I mean, she takes notes on every phone call that comes in, and she doesn't delete them until the task is completed. It's archaic, to be honest with you. I don't have a flashy answer for you for like, we've got this wonderful, robust system that does all this stuff. No, she just knows how to do her job, and she does it well. I wish I had a flashy answer for that, but it's always been like, well, every phone call that comes in, she writes down who called, why they called. She doesn't delete it until it's completed, and then the notes go in their file online. And so it's efficient. It works as long as they're doing their job, and so that's that. So what have I done that saved us time? Let me tell you a couple things that I've done to save time. One thing that I did years ago is I turned my phones off from 12 to 1 every day. Like I said, I like to tinker in my business. And like when things were starting to get hot and we were kind of overwhelmed, and like our to-do lists were not being done at a rate that I was happy with, and things were getting put on the back burner, and we weren't getting back to people at a timely manner and stuff like that. I was like, how can I get us some time? And we work with brokerages who turn their phones off from 12 to 1. They're out to lunch. Am I mad at them for that? No, that's just their system, right? So I was like, you know what? Let's try that. Like, this sounded like a pretty big risk to me. I'm like, am I going to piss a lot of people off if I turn my phones off from 12 to 1, right? So I was like, you know what? Let's do it. 12 to 1, because I will pilot things for 90 days. Let's try it for 90 days and see what happens. Let's see if we get yelled at by anybody. Let's see if we lose any business. But what's happening in the meantime? We are earning 15 hours of manpower every week, because the three of us are saving an hour every week that we don't have to handle the phones. That's 60 hours a month, that we're giving my team back. And that time, man, you can do a lot in an hour if you really focus. That's the other thing that I learned early in my career is if you spend 1 hour of purely focused time on a task, one task, you can do a lot. If you have to be smarter than your distractions. That's the other thing that I've learned. Like, we are pulled in so many different directions every minute of every day, and it makes us completely inefficient. It does. So if you can be disciplined enough to go airplane mode on your phone, go do not disturb on your other phone, and get to work, you get a lot done. It could change your life. It can literally change your life. 1 hour a day. What if you were able to do that and you made life phone calls for 1 hour a day, every single day? You would lead your state in life sales. Okay. I mean, for 1 hour a day. These are the types of things that I've learned over a career like this. Time, if you have to be efficient with your time, like, you have to be wildly efficient with your time, and you have to be efficient with your money. And that's what I've been fanatical about for a long time.
Two the biggest things pulled up out of that is some of the best systems are just having really good people and having that in place, and that makes a huge difference. And I think we were talking about earlier, being hard to find good people. They're worth their weight in gold. If you're finding good people, keeping them, that culture around them, so key. And then the second thing is the continuous improvement and making sure you have that in place where you're taking time, like you set this time aside to put things in place, test things, and you're not going to know unless you're testing things. But that continuous improvement, how can we make things better versus it's just the status quo and I'm busy and everything is like chaos because I don't take that time to consistently improve the agency. So I love that. And I love that it can always get better. There can always be things I can do or change. And you've set that time aside. So I love it. So coming from the agency side, but the content side, right? You said you started this kind of really before anybody else is really doing this in this space. And what were some of the motivations to start the podcast and how it kind of originally got kicked off and the focus and stuff there? I mean, 800 episodes is wild. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah. So this was in 2014. Podcasting was kind of having a renaissance. It had been around for a while, and then it kind of died off, and then it was starting to come back. So I was listening to podcasts that I was enjoying. It's free content. It's in our phones. There it is. And then I was also listening to a lot of Gary Vee at the time, Gary Vaynerchuk. You're probably aware of him. And he is the king of, attention. He says that we're all fighting for attention. So about 10, 12 years ago, we were all looking around, and everybody was just doing this 2 to 3 hours a day, staring at their phone. Their head was tilted down. They were looking at their phone all the time. So that's where their attention's going, right? And so as a business person who wants to sell policies and get in front of people, I was like, how can I get in those phones? Right. Social media was something that we all that some of us tried to jump on because that's where people's attention was going, right? Facebook and Instagram and Twitter back in the day, and bunch of other programs. But I was enjoying the podcasting space. So one of the podcasters that I was listening to was like, anybody can do a podcast. All you need is a computer and a microphone. That's all I needed to hear. And I was like, oh yeah. So I had like this creative itch that I needed to scratch. I was like, I'm going to do a podcast. And I actually said, I'm going to do 2 podcasts, because what's better than 1 podcast? 2 podcasts. So the first podcast, I was like, I'm going to talk about insurance. And because I get asked questions all the time about insurance, and we know that people don't really know how insurance works. We deal with the problems every single day. So I wanted my first podcast to be just like an FAQ of insurance policies. Do I need to buy the rental insurance when I rent a car? What's covered on a homeowner's policy? If my pipe bursts, what do I do? All the stuff that we deal with every single day. I wanted to put good information out there so that the general public could learn about how their policies work. Did I think anybody would listen? No. I just wanted to be able to pump out stuff on Facebook and stuff like that and be like, hey, it's marketing, right? So what ended up happening is I thought I had 20 policies in me. Or excuse me, 20 episodes in me. I'm like, 20 episodes. I don't know what else can I talk about. Anyway, I started using my agency for content. So every time I got a question, this is a good tip for any agent who's struggling with creating content. Okay, every question that we get asked is a piece of content that you can create. Okay, obviously somebody doesn't know something, and we get asked the craziest questions sometimes. So I got asked a question. Hey, my dog brought a skunk into my house last night, and the skunk went off and skunked in my house. Is that covered on my homeowner's policy? And I was like, I have no idea. So I had to call the right people and find out. And you know what? That was an episode. What a great episode, right? It's entertaining. It's true. We all learn a little something. But David, what ended up happening is the general public were not the ones that started listening to my podcast. It was my peers. It was my newer, younger peers. And so I started getting messages from agents all over the country. I love your content. I'm learning so much. It helped me pass the test. It's helping accelerate my career. And I was like, that was not the intention of this podcast, but I'm glad it's helping so many people. And so I changed my tune a little bit and started speaking like I was speaking to insurance agents. And so I did 300 episodes of that. And it's called Simply Explaining Insurance. Every episode is about 10 minutes. It's short. It's bite-sized. You can listen to a couple when you come into work or when you're walking your dog. It's very specific about one very specific product, because I know people don't want to hear me drone on about the deep cuts of exclusions on a commercial policy for too long, right? And then the other episode,
what better way to start the day, right?
And the other show that I did was I did an interview show. It's called None of My Business, and I started interviewing local business owners. And man, dude, it was one of the best marketing things that I've done in my entire career. I started it with current clients that I had as a thank you. I said, hey, I'm fascinated by the small business, the entrepreneur, the small business owner. I think it's fascinating. I want to know why the guy who owns, the gutter company, like, how did you get into the gutters? It's fascinating to me. So I started interviewing my current clients as a thank you. I create this beautiful piece of content. It's 45 minutes. It's an hour. And there it is, and you give it to them as a gift. They can share it with their whole network, and away you go. And I'm naturally curious. These are easy conversations for me to have. And I started learning things too. Once I ran through them, I was like, I don't know who else to interview. I went back to them. I said, hey, who else do you know that has a good story? And that was it. Everybody started feeding me. You need to talk to Jim, and you need to talk to Betty. You need to talk. And so I just started, filling my calendar with people that were referred to me. And I ended up interviewing 150 people, in my town over the course of 5 or 6 years or something like that. It got me past gatekeepers. I was starting to interview CEOs of companies in town, founders of bigger companies. And it was a way to get in front of the people that I needed to get in front of. This was the population I wanted to get in front of, and so it was a lot of fun. And I learned a bunch too. I'd interview like an accountant, and I'd be like, give me some best practices for tax savings. And like, I'm getting free tax advice, right? Or I'm getting somebody who's like, I'm a marketing specialist or a social media specialist. I'm like, how should I be marketing my business? And they would tell me, and I'm like, I'm getting free marketing advice too. It helped me grow as a business owner too. So it served so many purposes. And I wrote most of the people that I interviewed, I ended up becoming their agent. And so it was great.
I think that's a huge highlight from agents and agency owners listening today. Our podcast has been really big for us and content as well. But if you're an insurance agency or agent, and especially if you're working a lot locally, it just makes a ton of sense to do the podcast, to interview, connect with these people with influence, connections, referrals, and your target audience, even within that community and area. Whether or not like people are listening and watching the content itself by itself, just the process itself is lead generation, relationship building, referral partner building as well. Plus, it gets you really good at explaining and talking about topics and asking questions, which is good as you're doing sales. You should be asking the questions, right? So, I love that. I love you sharing how the impact that's made on your own agency and just the reputation throughout the area. Because now everybody, oh, who do you know? Matt's the best. Everybody go talk to Matt, right?
People started asking me about my podcast instead of my insurance business at some point. They're like, how's the podcast going? I'm like, it's great. So yeah, I started like there was no one else in town doing this at the level that I was, and so it was a lot of fun. And I would tell you too, I needed to train myself to not look at the metrics of like downloads and stuff like that, because this is a hyper local podcast, right? Like people, I wasn't getting a lot of downloads, but that wasn't the purpose of the show. Like I had some people that would listen to it and they were great conversations. And you could learn a lot from these people that have built these businesses. But the purpose of this podcast was to make the person in the other chair feel special, and share it with the people that they know and that they love. Send it to their mom, send it to their family, and like make them feel important, make them feel good. That's the purpose of this podcast, and for people that benefit from listening to these things, that's great. But I didn't do this to become the next Joe Rogan or something like that. Like that's a fool's errand. So you've got to be careful on what kind of metrics you're paying attention to. We need to be paying attention to what kind of premium are we getting because of this marketing, not how many downloads we're getting. Who gives a rip about downloads? How much premium is this driving? So you've got to really be careful about what you're paying attention to, because I could be like, oh man, 79 people listening to that podcast. That's it. So what, man? Hey, that's 80 people that you reached that you wouldn't have reached before, right? So would you want to stand in front of 80 people in a room and have their attention for 40 minutes? Yep. All day long. So, but you've got to think about these things, these numbers. There are vanity metrics out there, right? That we can't pay attention to. Is it making you money? Right? So anyway, that's the way that I learned to think about it, which was healthy, because you go, well, no one's listening. Nobody cares. I'm done. Nope. I was making great connection. It was doing exactly what I needed it to do, right? Which was to meet good professionals and to help grow my business. So
hitting your target audience and having them come to you, trust you, is going to win all day long as far as actual money than going viral with people that aren't my audience and I can't help anyways. Like vanity metrics, I mean, if you're looking to be Kim Kardashian, sure, whatever. But but if you're looking to grow your insurance business and your company, totally different metrics you're looking at, right? And so it's about going viral. It's about getting that trust. 79 businesses that want you to write the commercial policies versus 100,000 12-year-olds in another state. Or it's not clients. That doesn't do me no good, right? So I love the focus on things that make sense, and that applies to everything for agencies, right? Pay attention to the metrics that matter and not the ones that don't. So, and from the agency's success, from the podcast, and you realizing your peers were focusing on that and approaching you from that, that's led into coaching and helping them grow and scale agencies and put things in place. So, as a part of that side, what are, for example, some top time management mistakes that you see them making, and how do you help them fix this?
Well, we've talked about a couple already. Like the focused hour is really important. I teach that really hard. You've probably heard of some people have heard of the Pomodoro technique, which is really what this is. Do focus work for 45 minutes. I have a timer on my desk right now. Like it says 45 minutes. I start it and there it goes. It's counting down, right? So you set that, you have it on your desk, and you do what you need to do in 45 minutes. But you have to start that clock with a very specific thing that you're going to do. Okay. So if you're going to call life leads or something like that, have your 100 life leads or your numbers in front of you and don't start the clock and be like, all right, what am I going to do for 45 minutes? Like, you have to be organized, right? So that's one thing that I try and teach is the focused hour. The other thing too is like, it can get, I call it fake work. Like, you got to ask yourself the question, like, is the work I'm doing right now in this moment driving me premium? Is this leading me to a sale? Is it leading me to a prospect? Is it leading me to a quote? Is it leading me to premium? If not, why not? What are you doing or what can you be doing? Do you need to refocus? We can do a lot of fake, like I said, I call it fake work, where maybe you sit in your office for an hour and you look back, and I would ask you, what did you do for the last hour? And a lot of people are like, I don't know. I deleted a few emails. I tinkered around here. I might have put out a post. Like, is this driving you business? It might feel like you're working, right? And you might go home after a whole day of work like that and be tired, but you didn't quote anybody. Like, what are we doing? How are you using your time? And then the last thing, there's a time audit. I guess two other quick things. One, I would challenge anybody to do a time audit for you and your team, which is get a little spreadsheet or a sheet or whatever and write 9 to 10, 10 to 11, 11 to 12, 1 to 2, 2 to 3. Give everybody this sheet. I say, I want you to write down what you did during this hour for a whole week. Okay. We're going to go over it next week. I'm going to do it too. Okay. This opens eyes, man, because you know what? Your team will have one of its better weeks that it's had in a long time, because they're not going to hand you a blank sheet of paper that says, I don't know what I did last week. Right? It's a really strong.
Hours in the bathroom. Yeah.
Yeah. They're like, I don't know what I did from 2 to 4 last Thursday. Like, they're not going to turn that in. They're going to be like, God, I have to be doing something, And so it's a great eye-opening exercise that I would challenge anybody who's struggling with their time management to look at, because it helps the agency owner too. Like, God, I wasted a lot of time doing nothing last week, or, I'm wasting a lot of time doing service work. Why am I doing so much service work? I have a team that should be doing this, right? Which leads me into the next thing, which is delegation, is the one thing that many agents should do more of. Okay. And that's one thing that I've learned. I delegate everything to Meg. Everything, So I do things like, she helps me do like work comp audits with my clients. She calls underwriting for me and asks questions for me. She will call and talk to a commercial underwriter we're trying to get a risk through. She can apply for commercial policies because I've trained her to do that. She will fill out accord forms because I hate them more than anything. So I trained her how to do accord forms. She doesn't mind. She knows this is her job, and so I delegate everything away. And a lot of agents don't, for one reason or another. It's because they don't trust their team to do a good job. It's an ego thing, right? So they're like, I can't delegate this away. They won't do it as well as me. Well, that's your fault. Okay. You need to train how to do it the way you want to do it away so that you can save time. Agents who are doing service work are lowering like the ceiling of what their agency is capable of doing. The service work should go away, and the agent should be, the CEO, the quarterback of everything in the agency for sales and marketing. If you like service work, have at it, but you better train and delegate away all of your sales. You know what I mean? So you got to hit your numbers. So delegating and time management, man, are like, if you can master those two things, you will have a different business than you do today.
Fantastic. I love the breakdown. I'm a big fan of Pomodoro technique as well. Definitely helps with focus, because it's so easy to try to multitask, but it's been proven time and time again you're not as effective multitasking. So Pomodoro very much that focus. So with that, you've got some pretty cool stuff you've launched and put stuff in place. I was wondering if, one, you can tell us what the agency launch deck is, and then is there maybe one card that you could share that every shop should implement this week?
Yeah. So, Agency Launch is my training platform where I do one-on-one coaching with agents, and it's some of the best parts of my week. I work, and we solve the problems that they need to solve in real time. So we'll show up on a coaching and say, "Hey, man, what do you need work on today?" And they're like, "My God, I've got an employee that's driving me crazy. How can I turn this around? What do I need to do?" Or I'm hiring somebody. What should I look for when I'm hiring someone? I need to write more life. I need to write more commercial. I need to save more money. I need to get off leads. Like the amount of problems that we solve has been endless, but it's very personalized, right? So the coaching is so much fun, and a lot of agents are benefiting, a ton by having somebody avoid minefields and make good decisions and do a lot of the things that you and I have talked about today. Recently, I came up with a deck of cards because over the past few years, have come across companies that put out really cool decks of cards for professionals, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to do that. So I have an online platform that has everything that I wish I knew when I started my agency. That's how Agency Launch got started. I'm like, what do I wish I knew when I started? And so the online portal has videos and templates and downloadable things of me teaching staffing, sales, marketing, and retention. Anyway, I took all of those things and I mashed it into a deck of cards, and this is it right here. So it's gorgeous.
Oh, it's so nice. I know. I was going to say, just the box itself is impressive.
Yeah. So there are like 50 cards in here, and like, for example, let's see what's a good one here. So yeah, this one's good. Set clear, measurable job expectations. All right. So on the front, there's some highlighted parts that says, make sure you document your job expectations, hold your employees accountable, set clear expectations, or your team will set their expectations for you. There's also a QR code. What do you think that leads to? Oh, it leads to a podcast episode about this very topic, because I podcasted about everything. So that QR code, if you want to hear me talk about it out loud, scan it, and away you go. And then on the back is where there's a ton of information too. So there's actionable best practices, what this might look like per role. So you were talking about setting clear, measurable job expectations. So it says, here's some job expectations for a telemarketer, for a producer, for a customer service representative. What kind of expectations should you have for your team? It's such a great roadmap for a very important topic. There's a lot of information on there. And this is just one out of 50 cards in here. So it's how to create a simple video series. So for us marketers, like what should we think about when we want to put out some good marketing, where there's, I do a series called Gone in 60 Seconds, which is, I don't want to talk for more than 60 seconds about a specific topic. And so I bust something out within 60 seconds. And so I talk about, best practices and what you should do to get started, and doing something and getting it done is more important than making it perfect, right? So just put stuff out there and continue to hone your craft. So I love it. Like I'm very proud of it. It's there's so much information in there. If you followed the cards and you learn what's in there, you'll be a better agency owner. As simple as that. So that's the deck.
I mean, and we've talked about this before, that in hindsight's always 2020, and kind of retrospect for ourselves, and we realize the value is why we both coach, train on that side. Like, if I can have someone show me how to do things correctly, the right way, the ways they found success, and do that, avoid the mistakes and going through all the pain and time myself on that's the fastest way to grow, have the most success, avoid the pitfalls on that as well. So if you can have someone who's taken this knowledge, put this into something I can utilize, I can roll out to my team, it's so powerful versus, just go with the flow and try to figure this out and hit every single roadblock along the way, right? So lovely put together this beautiful deck. I think amazing gift to agency owners and all kinds of ways on that. So I'm going to keep that in mind on that side for sure. But definitely check that out, guys. Matt, I know we could talk for a long time, and I look forward to continued conversations with you on a lot of this. One last question I have for you before we wrap up a little bit on this podcast is, what's one process change that most agencies resist, but once they do it, they never go back? What are some things that maybe scared of, frightened of, worried about, and so they're like, I don't know about it. And
Okay.
it makes all the difference when they do.
This comes down to a mindset, and it's something that I wish to impart on all of my agency owner brothers and sisters. Okay. The word ask has been something that I've been shouting from the rooftops. I want people to see the opportunity that is out there for us from a sales standpoint, because it is literally everywhere. Okay. You need to understand that we can sell a product to almost anybody, just not a child, right? They own a car. If they live someplace, like, we can sell them something. Okay. So why aren't we taking advantage of that fact? Asking for people's business. If you ask for people's business, you're going to write more business. I can't say it any more like firmly than that, but people resist because they're afraid. What are you afraid of? If you can answer that question and you can fix it, you'll be a better agency owner. Why are you afraid? Is it an ego thing? Are they going to say no? Who cares, right? Go to the next person and ask them. What are you really afraid of? If you can ask people for their business, strangers for their business, and there's a way to do it. It's one of the cards in the deck. How to ask strangers for business. There's talking points on how to do it. Okay. Quick example. We get marketed all the time by people that come in my agency. Like, hey, we're ABC Restoration. You should use us because we're great and we're going to take care of your clients. And I'm like, cool. Who's your agent? Like, I go right at them. They're in my house, right? So who's your agent? I'm going to ask them. Your radar needs to be up all the time of where are the opportunities. My landlord just sold my building recently to my neighbor. My first initial automatic thought was, I'm going to get the policy for the building. And I walked right next door. I was like, hey man, congratulations. Who insures the building now? Because I didn't get it from my landlord, because you bet your ass I asked my landlord a long time ago, but he had a great policy and I couldn't beat it. So I'm like, I got another chance to write the building. I ran right next door. I was like, can I quote your building? And I did, and I didn't get it, but this is the mentality, the hunter mentality, the ask. I can't, you can tell I'm passionate about it, but I want people to ask people for business, because you'll write more. But the opportunities are everywhere. If you're at your kid's soccer game, you need to be scanning the sidelines and be like, oh man, they pulled up in a BMW. Like, I got to have this conversation with this family, And so the opportunities everywhere, If you want it, you go get it, but you have to be willing. You have to be willing to ask, and that's what I wish to impart on all of us who are trying to grow a business.
I think a big takeaway from that as well is that almost abundance mindset, that there's the opportunity. This is not a zero sum game. This is something that there's opportunity everywhere. Yes, this industry takes a lot of work, but I mean, it's here. It's been here forever. It will be here forever. I'm sure it's not going anywhere. And so there's so much opportunity, but it's the action that leads to results. The fear keeps us from growing, right? So I love that. Matt, for those that, hey, I want to plug in. Matt's got going on. I want to listen more. I want to check out. Hey, where can I follow him and see more? Where's the best places for them to connect with you?
I'm really active on LinkedIn, so just seek me out on LinkedIn. I'm there all the time. I put out as good of quality content as I can for people about all of this stuff that we're talking about. My content is for the agents. I'm trying to teach people how to do stuff. I do a ton of free content. My podcasts are Simply Explaining Insurance. There is another one called Agency Launch, which is all about running an agency. It's very good. The content is all actionable and very important. They're on Spotify and Apple Podcasts and a bunch of other places. That's where most people find their stuff. Those are probably on agencylaunch.net is where my coaching platform is. agencylaunch.net/deck is where you'll find the deck. I'm all over the place, so I'm not hard to find. So come and find me and let's have a conversation.
I love it. Guys, we will get those links included in the show notes and everything for you guys. If you guys to go to jumpstartgonow.com/podcast, we'll get those included for you there. Thank you, Matt, once again, so much for taking the time and joining us and talking about everything today and sharing. Really, really appreciate it.
Thank you, David. It's a pleasure. And I will return the favor, and I'm going to interview you next. So you're going to be on my show. So
I would love that. So come check out the episode over on the podcast.
Yeah, let's keep teaching. Okay.
I love it. Guys, thank you guys for joining us on this episode of the Modern Insurance Agent Podcast. We'll catch you on the next one.